as a mighty fine banquet of everyone's favourites all at once starts to draw to a close. Simone feels a tug at her sleeve. Looking to her side, she sees SJ, releasing their jaws from her jacket. "Sup, kiddo?" the redhead asks. A bit nervously, the little Wataf lifts up a datapad with a message. "I'm happy you are back, Mum." Simone puts a hand on her chest and stitches at the back of SJ's head with the other. "Me too, kiddo. Wish I didn't have to go like we did, but it was important," she replies sweetly. SJ nods, but the nervousness doesn't dispel, causing Simone to lean closer in concern. "Something wrong?" she asks softly. Turning the pad, SJ types up a new message rather quickly, but hesitates a few seconds before turning it back around for Simone to see. "I want to say you something, but I do not want to be in trouble," they admit, hiding their face behind the pad. Feeling a slight sinking feeling, attached to the weight of parenthood, takes Simone's heart. But she smiles and nods before scooping them up in her arms. Standing up, she looks at Jack. "SJ and I will be right back, hon. If you guys need help with Jamie before, then shoot me a message," she informs. "Oh, alright. Thankfully Seven seemed used to keeping our son distracted," Chubb chirps in response, thinking SJ needs to be rushed to a lavatory. After a quick glance around to make sure nothing was about to fall into potential chaos, Simone quickly steps out and moves towards the front of the ship to sit in Choknok's pilot's seat. To provide some privacy, she also closes the wide bridge doors. Clearing her throat, Simone internally prepares herself to hear just about anything that her child needs to say or admit. "Okay, kiddo. I'm ready to hear you out, and whatever you need to tell me, I promise that I'm not going to be angry with you. You can talk to me about anything, and even if it's bad, I'm still going to be on your team. We may need to sit down and figure things out in some cases, but I'm here for you," she reassures, in a tone that she hopes is at least a fraction as comforting as the one her own father used. SJ shallowly nods before slowly flicking at the datapad to an already written message that, unbeknownst to Simone, was rewritten several times and crafted with the eventual requested help of a certain resident Trumpel. Staring at their message for a short while, SJ slowly turns it for the redhead to see, once again hiding their face behind it. "Dear Mums, I know what you do is super important. I know too that Jamie is my brother and needs my help when you are gone. I want to help and do it good. But Grandpa said I need to be honest about how I feel and tell you if stuff is too much. So that is what I'm doing. Jamie isn't bad and does not do bad things, but he is really loud and does not sleep as much as me. He doesn't know that my stuff is mine and has almost broke my things a lot. I want to help, but I don't sleep as much as I need, and I don't want my stuff broken. Sharing is okay and I do it, but some of my stuff is just for me. I do want to help, but I need my time and stuff alone. I'm really, really, really sorry, and still want to help." Simone reads it all twice over. After the first time, she bites onto her middle knuckle with slightly trembling teeth as she goes through it again. "Oh, kiddo," she whispers, in a disappointed tone to the child's fear, but upon noticing the redhead course corrects before SJ can get the wrong idea. "You've done nothing wrong, kiddo. I'm so sorry. Come here." She gently invites to hug the kid with both of her arms. SJ is initially tense, unsure why their mum was being apologetic, but relaxes as the tenderly secure arms envelop them. Once she feels the tension leave, Simone then pulls up her legs to emphasize the embrace as she fights back tears. "You're already growing up so fast, and you are so dang responsible for your age, but that doesn't mean what I asked you to do was unfair. I guess since I didn't grow up with any siblings, I just thought, well, growing up where I did, we took care of each other like family, but we didn't have to exist and share all our space, so I thought asking you to watch out for your brother was the right thing to do. I still want you to watch out for him, of course, but you're still a young kid too, and need your own time and space to be one. Parenting is my and your other mum's job, not yours, she affirms, before adjusting herself so that she could look SJ directly in one of their eyes. You are our kid too, and your needs need to be met just as much as your brother's. I'm so sorry if I made you think otherwise. I love you, kiddo, and I hope you know that I'd do anything to make sure you're safe and happy. I'm not going to be the perfect mum, and despite giving my best, I'll make mistakes. But you'll always have my best, and you can always talk to me, especially if I'm slipping up like I did, okay? Rubbing their face into Simone, SJ sheepishly nods in sincere relief and appreciation. How about we set up a space just for you? I know we were going to retrofit and give you the big closet at the end of the bedroom hallway while you're still small. We can put all your personal stuff that you don't want Jamie access to in there, and even get a cozy bed for when you want to sleep by yourself. When you get a bit bigger, we can move you into your own room, but I'm going to run it by Grandpa first and make sure that you can't get stuck in there if something were to happen. That sound like a good plan to start with? Simone proposes. SJ nods again with more excitement, and begins to type on their pad in view for their mother to see. Can I have a beanbag bed? Please? Simone's upper torso rocks as she lets out a quiet laugh. You bet you can, kiddo, she chuckles, as she rubs under one of her eyes with a free arm. We'll take you out shopping next chance we get, she promises while hugging the Bataf. Get you some cool-ass decor. Can't promise Vic game stuff, but I'll try to convince your other mum. As her child revels in glee at that prospect, the redhead recalls the day that she drew the Watafling from their liquid-filled canister. They were so tiny back then, and it really hasn't been all that long. She remembers the feeling of finally becoming a parent, something she always wanted but never thought would come to pass. SJ gave her that incredible gift, and now she is the mum of two. Both a wonderful and terrifying thing. Jamie needs specific attention, and will likely have to face a lot of isolating hardship in his future. But she resolves to not let that fact distract her from her first kid and their needs. The grand crisis that looms over the galaxy is beyond important to face, but that doesn't mean she will miss raising either of her kids. Not only will they grow up and live in a more peaceful universe, but they will have been given the best childhoods that Terran and Callie can provide. Now, as to make your job as the older sibling easier when we're gone, I have an idea for that too. Zroom loyally sits like a statue at Jack's side in the bedroom quarters hallway. Sitting cross-legged across from the dog and princess is Simone with a child on each knee. She also has to keep a certain little Manarian's tail wrapped around one of her arms to keep the curious boy from prematurely prodding at the animal. Alright, you two, Simone sighs in preparation, as she points to the dog to gain her children's attention. Her name is Room. She's here to help keep everyone on this ship safe, and although she's very smart, she's an animal who doesn't talk or fully understands things. So you two have to be nice to her, okay? Although you can play with her, remember that she's not a toy or a plaything, and still has feelings and boundaries. We respect those under this roof, she informs them. Zoom, Jamie confidently states, as he reaches out a small, clawed pointing hand. Yes, that's Room. Can you say hi, Room? Simone encourages the toddler, as her point changes into a friendly wave. Hi, Room, Jamie cheers, all in a single word, before twisting his open palm in a more stiff wave. His tail initially attempts the same, but the redhead's hold on it keeps it from extending out. Giving a smiling nod, Simone then looks at SJ. How about you, kiddo? Want to try saying hi? She invites. SJ seems to experience a bit more trepidation about meeting the animal. Their plates flick in uncertainty as they mimic the waving gesture with one of their graspers. Hi, Shroom? They released from their maw. Their current voice capability was very hoarse, but it came through the hollow hissing. Does that count as SJ's first word? Chuck chirps in sudden excitement. Simone lifts an eyebrow. Damn, close enough, she grants in a laugh, before scritching the back of the Wataf's neck. Great job, kiddo. Spirits rising, the proud child clicked their back plates in a flowing pattern. Very good job indeed, Chuck agrees. Is it okay if I bring Shroom to you? I promise she is very nice, she asks the less dog-eager Wataf. SJ looks at the dog and their parents nervously before snuggling closer to the Terran. After a moment of consideration, they nod. Yes, the Wataf permits. Chuck begins to walk forward with the working pooch at her side. As they get close up, the nostrils of the canine flares but doesn't show signs of aggression. Shroom, at ease, gentle, the Callie instructs aloud. Posture relaxing and mouth opening, the dog immediately leans her excited sniffing right up to Jamie's face in repetitive sniff, 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 sniff huffs. Jamie squeals in a laugh as he turns his head away when the dog's sniffs become licks, tasting the pizza the boy recently indulged in. Okay, Simone says. Disappointed to cut the adorable short, she carefully lifts a hand between the two. Shroom can't have garlic and your face is covered in it, the redhead explains, as the dog changes targets completely and moves over to inspect the other child. SJ lets out an involuntary hiss of concern as the sniffer gets closer, causing her to perk her head back from them. Shroom, gentle, Chuck reminds. Although the animal was doing well, the last thing any of them want is to have a potentially venom bite from SJ. Instead of leaning her face back in, Shroom takes a half step back and falls down into a lying position. Her head rests down on her front paws, and her eyes look up at SJ directly. Would you like to pet her? Chuck asks the Wataf, as she sits down on her knees and runs one of her upper arms down the dog's neck and back. Seeing the animal assume such a submissive gesture, SJ pulls away from their redhead mum with curiosity. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with, but we promise Shroom knows her job is to protect you. She's not going to hurt you, Simone reassures SJ, as she guides Jamie's tail grasper to the dog, to show how gentle to be with her. Working up the courage, the Wataf child crawls off Simone, and cautiously approaches Shroom from the diagonal side. The dog takes glances at the skittering bean, but shows nothing but relaxed patience. Once they are close enough to get into Grasper's reach, SJ begins to scritch in the fur wearily, and when nothing negative seems to happen, they do it in earnest. They get a minor spooking surprise, however, when Shroom plops down on her side and scoots to her back, exposing her dark underbelly. Ah, Simone says at the display, while Jamie laughed, thinking it is the most hilarious thing. Rub her belly, trust me, Simone insists to SJ, as she lets Jamie get closer as well. Unsure as to why they are given that instruction, SJ approaches once again and starts scritching. After a few standard seconds, Simone points, to which sends Jamie into an even more entertained fit of laughter. Turning to look, the Wataf immediately sees that the animal is thrashing one of her rear legs in the air in bouncy kicks. Hissing a laugh as well, SJ scritches faster, hoping it would cause the leg kicking to go quicker. When it noticeably does, they are beside themselves with giddy amusement. Smiling deeper as she releases Jamie's tail, Simone keeps an eye on things. Thankfully, SJ seems to be fully comfortable around Shroom, and Jamie picked up on not being rough with her. The redhead's gaze flicks up to find Chuck's already glowing her way. They both share a mutual stare, at first brimming with being content, but then expands into something else. The
the very same thought enters their mind of doing something before the galaxy has a chance to be flipped on its head for the rest of time. After several standard days of travel, Chak finds herself striding down the corridor between the medbay and mess hall. Not because of her sheer confidence, but rather deciding to just go for it, by Simone's advice. She's not certain why she's so nervous about this, perhaps even a bit guilty that she shouldn't be nervous at all. Yet she is, very much so. But this has to be done, no way around it. When the Kali enters the bridge, she finds Chognok tapping away and adjusting the future course through the galactic lanes. With the recent events of the Federation forming, the modified star charts the captain used to navigate the areas where both Chak and Simone wouldn't be safe are, outside of Kali territories, completely pointless now. The Union fully pardoned Thatch, and the princess alluded to the universe that she was under this Federation's protection by going to that interview before leaving Central. Only the most mad, corrupt, or desperate of bounty hunters will seek them out now. Also, taking shortcuts through certain areas of space is now a more valid option.
Captain?
Chak speaks up.
Yes, Chakalotomotaz. Is there another station you wish to stop at before we head to our final destination?
The old man inquires.
We can stop by Kamoy if you wish. Maybe you can enjoy that restaurant without shattering its floor this time. Ha ha.
Oh, actually, that doesn't sound like a terrible idea. But that's not why I'm visiting you. May we speak in private?
Chak replies, as she nervously bounces in place. Turning to see the princess's current state, Chognok's scowls pale slightly, but he keeps up his usual jovial demeanour.
Of course. Come, I have tea in my quarters,
he invites, as he remotely opens the floor door and slides off his seat. Chak nods gratefully, but only seems to be more uneasy as she follows and sits in her usual seat. That captain is swift to provide the warm cold dew tea and settle at his personal table's side.
Do you even like cold dew? I realized I never really asked you,
Chak asks to break her own tension.
That's all you came to ask?
Chognok teases before chuckling.
Nowhere near my favourites, but it does well enough in a pinch. Especially if I'm hosting a Kali princess. Ha ha ha.
Chak's eyes light up slightly as she smiles.
You've been there for me since, well, most of my life, Chak says. Not just before the travesty, but you stepped up in a way that made sure that all of this was possible. I owe you my life, Chognok. After our guards turned on me, you were the only person I had left. You traded a well-earned retirement away for a life of being on the run and aimless. I don't think I could possibly thank you enough.
And I do it again and again. I may be a washed-up admiral with a life plenty filled with my own misadventures and experience, but I don't regret the adventures you or your fiancé have brought. I wish your whole family was still alive, of course, but since this is where the stars find themselves positioned, then I'm beyond glad to see you find your stride and place among them,
Chognok says, with the utmost earnesty. Chak's eyes grey, as though on the verge of crying, but they begin to flicker before she lets out a small laugh. The captain tilts his head curiously.
Well, don't hold the joke for my sake, ha ha ha,
he says. Chak scratches the side of her face for a moment before shaking her head.
Oh, sorry, no. I genuinely appreciate that. It's just... I just remembered us sitting here while I confided in you that I had feelings for Simone. You encouraged me to follow my feelings. It feels so silly that I needed convincing in the first place, considering me and her are about to be married, she clarifies, while feeling her own current nerves start to melt away. Speaking of which, Simone and I have decided on how our wedding will go. There will be a few traditional practices from both our cultures, but some of it is just stuff we thought would just be fun. That's actually what I want to speak with you about, something regarding the wedding itself.
Aye, I've been to quite a few weddings and mate bonding ceremonies myself. Although my track record isn't the best when it comes to attending weddings, that I didn't get a little disordered with other attendees. Regardless, I'd be more than happy to provide my insight to your plans, the captain replies, before taking a deep sip of tea.
Yes, well, your insight is always welcome, but that's not quite what I was getting at. You see, a part of many Terran traditions in weddings involves some sort of blessing by the parents of those being wed. Callie don't do that usually, as you know, but I really like the idea of sharing a part of our special day with someone who I by all accounts consider a father figure to me. A genuine one that did what any parent would do, Chuck says, fighting back any returning nervousness to finally ask. Choknok, will you officially offer your blessings for me to marry Simone? Not that it's needed for us, because we'd marry anyway, but not only did you help us truly be together, but when I think of father, all I feel at first is rage and anger, because he first comes to mind for what he's done. But then, I think of you, and all that anger goes away, because you've given that title something worth cherishing in my mind.
Chuck is cut off, as the Trumpet pulls her into a warm embrace. He pats her on the back comfortingly, as she sinks her face into his shoulder.
I watched you grow up, and in the face of unthinkable hardship and tribulations, I've seen you become an incredible woman. With the stars against you, again and again, you stood strong and now hammer your horns right back at them. If you weren't planning on surrendering the crown to your brother, I think you'd make a marvelous queen. But I'm so proud of the path you're choosing to take. This is your life, and the only one able to decide what you are to do with it is you. That said, nothing would fill my old spirit with more honor than offering you and Simone my blessings. You've had them since the start, but I don't mind declaring it again on your special day.
Thank you,
Chuck's muffled voice says in sincere love, before fully hugging back.
Whoa!
Sonla utters, after she inspects the decimated smouldering target of an explosive that she set off.
Told you.
Honestly, you can get a similar effect with some quick modifications to certain plasma weapons, Brandy informs the Varuk. Well, actually with the right know-how and desperate circumstance, one can convert a plasma weapon into an array of things. A torch, cutter, stovetop. Pretty versatile if you're not afraid of the risk of blowing some fingers off. I've done all of that, even used one as a surgery tool a few times.
Wow, can you show me?
Sonla begs right away. Brandy lifts an eye tuft and smokes down at her explosive keen friend. How about we take apart a drained plasma gun and I'll show you what to look for when making modifications. As experienced as I am, those things are really for emergency situations with little other choice. Remember, you're very likely scraping a good plasma weapon to do most of those things, and the danger it poses to not only yourself, but the people around you alone, is something to keep in mind before committing, she says sternly.
Ah, damn. But fair,
Sonla grants.
You sound really cool, though. Do you have a mate? Not that I'm offering. I only want a big boyfriend. But you must have good advice on finding one.
Oh, I've had a few folks shoot their shot over the years, but I've never really been in their markets. So, sorry, but I'm the last person you should get that kind of advice from. Glad you think I'm cool, though, Brandy chuckles.
You don't want a mate?
Sonla asks for clarification. Nope, and don't really want what they offer. Honestly, the idea of having another person constantly exist in my proximity sounds exhausting. I'm good to cuddle up with a good read or show all by my lonesome. But if you want some sort of advice from me, I guess I can say what works for other people around here is to be direct with your feelings. Be conscious of the other person's feelings and honestly communicate. I'm sure something will eventually spark for you. Brandy replies with a shrug. Mind if I ask what you find so appealing about finding a big Zartuk guy?
I'm a sucker for pretty boys, and pretty feathers are bigger and bigger guys,
Sonla explains, as she starts to sort through what to blow up next. Fair enough, I guess. You go, girl, Brandy laughs as she shakes her head. We should have remained in Central. Our grasp in the Union is being picked apart every moment that passes now. If we would have invested in eliminating the princess at the very least, this whole federation could have been avoided. It compromises everything else outside the Union. Not only that, but with Harkon gone, how do you expect to keep all the branches on the tree before our lords are ready to emerge? Glada, the current reigning chief of the Children of Gaia, says to a helmeted woman working away at several hard-light consoles at her desk.
Very unfortunate losses to our goal, but our numbers are suitable even if we were to be fully exiled from the Union. We may not be able to pack the punch we hope for, but that just means we need to hit somewhere else. The plan overall hasn't changed, but there is a need to rearrange and refocus. It's also clear that my personal project needs further refinement. 4 have been dispatched already. Hardly the vanguards of humankind I'm shooting for, Ember says, not even looking up at her guest.
If you really think Terrans will look up to these cybernetic experiments while the Empire reigns, then I think your idea of great leadership isn't widely shared, Glada counters with unhidden disgust. Why not invest in genetic perfection for these super soldiers? Aren't the Manarians masters of gene manipulation? Surely that would be more suitable for what you're envisioning.
Exactly, because they are masters of such. If Terrans are to be their highest of servants, it's up to me to preserve us while under their stewardship. They'll want to perfect us to their liking, but we must hold on to ourselves. If we suit their needs with cybernetics, our minds and identity will remain true. Then one day, we may be able to. Ember trails off, as she flicks the screen away and stands up. Regardless, have you succeeded smuggling the ships and arms to the Malkite homeworld?
Yes. The quarantining Central Fleet has grown rather lax again. With the Kali King's assistance, the liberation efforts are in full swing.
Excellent. Hopefully the Sheeple King keeps his cool until he's needed. But, as agreed for your continued service, Ember says, as she waved a hand for the Gaia Chief to follow. Leading her out, Ember strides through a hallway and into a nearby set of thickly armoured doors. She pressed down on an indicator and stood by as she and her guest are thoroughly scanned. Once the security VI found nothing of concern, the doors rumbled and scrolled open. Within is a long expansive lab, lined with vertical tanks, many of which are occupied and filled with a strange thick transparent fluid. Hundreds of researchers and scientists work away at each of their designated duties and roles. While Glada eyes practically everything with curiosity, Ember only glances to the side once in her venture deeper into the lab. A partially occupied tank, with a half-developed spine and brain, with the designation Sam Mark III on the accompanying monitoring console. But this isn't Ember's intended destination. She continues marching on until she stops at the only tank with a completely formed Terran within. He should have his memory up to before he landed on the Grat homeworld, but the knowledge of how he dies has been given as well, she tells Glada, without so much looking at her. Minimal cybernetics, as requested. Though with the wiggle room granted, he will have a few perks he didn't have in his past life. Glada slowly walks up, right to the tank, lifting a hand up and pressing it against the surprisingly warm surface. Staring up at the slumbering face of her reborn husband, she starts to tear up. Cole, you'll live to see our work completed, and I hope you can forgive me, clone or not. The Children of Gaia needs you. All of Terrankind needs you. Please understand why I asked for this, Glada says, as though the man within can hear her, before she turns her head slightly, but doesn't remove her gaze from the man. Is he ready? She asks. Just about. Don't worry, my people are running final checks as we speak, Ember informs, before stepping back. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have more pressing matters to attend to.